now, right 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 now. Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. Shall we start here on the daily? Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been.
Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about why Bitcoin very well may be about to see a major movement. In fact, it's possible that Bitcoin might actually manage to institute some kind of movement to the upside. You see, over the last 48 hours or so, Bitcoin has been on basically a straight trend down. However, over the last 12 hours or so, Bitcoin has actually broken bullish above this downtrending level of resistance, which means that as we stand, Bitcoin finds itself very deep into this symmetrical triangle pattern. And by all accounts, this is most likely a bearish pattern. However, if Bitcoin proves us wrong and does manage to break through some of these downtrending moving averages right here, then there is a very real possibility that Bitcoin could actually institute some kind of bottom, which would likely mean that we are now starting to build out the fourth wave rather than the third wave. I personally am of the opinion that Bitcoin is not done with the bear market yet, but if Bitcoin is able to get some upwards momentum here, then that is where things might actually start to get very, very interesting. So, if you are new here, my name is Jeb McAfee. I've been working in the cryptocurrency space for quite a while, and I love analyzing Bitcoin charts, and it's my dream to help you understand what's going on Bitcoin so that you can build wealth here in the cryptocurrency space. It is it's absolutely wonderful to be here with you guys this morning. Very much looking forward to our time together. Juby is in chat. Bartizan is in chat. Korozoko is in chat. Good to see you. Jason Lindsay's in chat. Queen's in chat. Mark Sinat is in chat. It's a cool name. Miguel Rangel said, morning, Jeb. Good morning to you as well. Are we crashing or going into a mega bull run? You know, that's the first thing that we want to remind ourselves of. And that is the fact that we always want to put ourselves in a position where we benefit no matter what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin does go onto a mega bull run and rally back to all-time highs, then we sit on our hands and we enjoy the Bitcoin that we've already acquired. And if Bitcoin goes lower, then we find a way to invest more money into Bitcoin. And that's exactly what we end up doing. So right now, we're going to be trying to analyze which direction is Bitcoin going. Overall, it's extremely bearish. And as you know, I believe that Bitcoin is going to be breaking below $60,000 relatively soon, but it is only fair to point out that Bitcoin is trying at least to institute some kind of bullishness. For now, though, it does seem weak. So, without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. Bitcoin right now is trading at $67,000. It is essentially sideways over the last week. Stagnant is a word for the market that would be quite fitting at this point in time. Bitcoin has been trading sideways right here in that $67,000 range ever since the bounce. And this is part of the reason why I am still at this point skeptical of this recovery, although I will give it the time of day to say that if we do break just a couple of $1,000s higher, then this could be a bullish setup. The reason that I'm quite skeptical of this movement is because so far, following the bounce above $60,000, we have not seen anything more than a $12,000 rally. Bitcoin has only managed to rally back up to $72,000. It has not managed to get an actual strong bounce in, and that bounce up to $72,000 happened about 3 days after the bottom. When that occurred, Bitcoin immediately shed about 50% of the rally dropping right back down to this 0.5 Fibonacci level, and we have failed to set a higher high ever since. And so what we find ourselves in is this sideways market right now, and Bitcoin simply has not made any decision. But what we can say is that since Bitcoin is sitting here in this sideways market following a downtrend, then we are theoretically bearish, and that Bitcoin should be expected to push to the downside. And in actual fact, even if Bitcoin does manage to rally up here to its resistance, it still would need to break through this resistance before we could start considering Bitcoin to be bullish in any real capacity. So once again, I don't want you to panic out of your holdings at all. I think down here at these levels would be an awful place to sell Bitcoin, because as we know, Bitcoin is cyclical. I see absolutely no reason whatsoever to believe that Bitcoin is not going to have a very bullish 2027, 2028, and possibly even on into 2029. I see absolutely no reason to believe that Bitcoin is going to do anything other than what it has always done, which is that it's going to follow through on the 4-year halving cycle, and that we're going to see a major bull market. I don't see any reason why we should be concerned about the long term on Bitcoin. But in the short term, we are only about 140 days into the bear market, and that does theoretically mean that there is quite a bit more downside that could be to come. So we want to be very careful and be prepared for that. So for now, our point is that Bitcoin does have the possibility of flipping bullish, although it has not done it yet. And the way that that would happen would largely be as a result of what's going on down here on the hourly chart, with quite a bit of the resistance that we see up here on said hourly chart. You can also see what our Fibonacci's are looking at, that 0.236 if we draw it that way, and then also our 0.236 if we draw it this way, right? These come into play. So Bitcoin needs to get a strong recovery above $70,000 before we can start saying that Bitcoin is bullish. And until that point in time, that's when we start to see that Bitcoin is, until that point in time that Bitcoin gets above $70,000, that's where we continue to ascertain that Bitcoin is extremely bearish. So don't have anything that we can say for sure on the direction right now, other than we have to assume bearishness because that's what was leading into this market movement. And we also have to assume bearishness because of the fact that we are in a bear market and Bitcoin is trading sideways. So when we're trading sideways, we go back to our longer term biases. Our bias right now is bearishness because we are in a bear market. By the way, if Bitcoin does actually top out right here, and this rally up to $68,000 was a local high, and Bitcoin starts falling back over and breaks this low, that's where we would likely see that precipitous decline back down towards $60,000 begin. So really, can go either way right now. We're at a decision point. This is the kind of the point I want to make here, is that this test right here is actually extremely critical, because however Bitcoin responds to this resistance in about that $68,000 range is going to be very vital to the next couple of months of Bitcoin price action. It's also important to note that Bitcoin is currently fighting with not just any old level, it's currently fighting with the previous all-time high, which was here at $69,000. It's currently using that as resistance. You can see our flat level of resistance right here is the previous all-time high, and Bitcoin fell below it and has had a hard time getting back up above it, which indicates to me that we're probably moving into a sub prior all-time high trading range, which is not surprising. It's not something that I'm concerned about either. If we look at our market back here, we spent a good bit of time down here in this sub all-time high trading range. And it's also important to note that while Bitcoin did have a very wonderful bull market here, almost an 8x, a lot of people are complaining about it because it doesn't fit their models, but an 800% return, 700% return in 3 years, that's pretty dang good. So, But that said, it is still smaller percentage-wise than these prior markets, which indicates that we might actually end up spending a little bit more time below all-time high than we did in the past. You just have to understand that, wow, man, if that's not a sign that you should subscribe, I don't know what is. Wow, look at us. As I told you guys, I've got a lot of stuff going on. One of the things is building out this set. I have not streamed out here at 8 a.m. before, so looks like that window does need a blind, so there we go. Either way, we'll go ahead and read some chat and just keep looking at the chart since I got to get that lens flare taken care of. Jeb, will you go into geopolitical news, mainly with what is going on in Iran, and can it lead to World War III? Fantastic question, and I will do my best for the rest of us to tie that back into Bitcoin. Okay, so what is happening with Iran? That is one of the most complicated geopolitical situations of our time. And the reason that it's so complicated is because the Iranian government is one that is not very old, but exists on top of a nation and a people group and an ethnicity that is extremely old. The Persian Empire, the Persian people are a ethnicity, culture, whatever you want to call it, that go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right back to honestly, right back to post-flood era. I mean, we're dealing with the last 4,000 years or so of history. And you also have the conflict between Iran and Israel, which Israel in and of itself is an extremely old culture dating back almost 3,500 years of recorded history. And the grievances run deep between the Iranian Republic, if you will. I don't exactly like the word republic. Khomeini's dictatorship might be a better word for it. And Israel. Why is this important? Well, for a couple of reasons. We'll try and make this somewhat brief, but it is important that you understand the geopolitical realities on the ground. If you look at Iran over here, it basically is the Middle East. This is the single largest country in the Middle East. They are about half of the border of the Persian Gulf, and there are an enormous amount of oil exports that come out of the Persian Gulf. By some accounts, up to 25% of global crude, about 15% of global natural gas comes out of this little choke point right here called the Strait of Hormuz. This is the opening to the Persian Gulf. And Iran, with their missile capacity, has the ability to block that at any point in time, which would severely hamper China, because the vast majority of China's, maybe not the vast majority, but a very large plurality of China's crude resources are coming through the Persian Gulf, from the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz over to China. If Iran were to actually decide to mine the Strait of Hormuz and shut it down, it could have cataclysmic consequences on the global economy, much, much, much worse than what we saw when the war between Russia and Ukraine began. And the war between Russia and Ukraine was extremely serious because Ukraine was once known as Europe's breadbasket. It was an enormous food exporter to countries like Egypt, Sudan, Libya, Turkey, Syria, Azerbaijan, Georgia, etc. So the war in Ukraine had huge knock-on effects on the global supply chain. And when the war in Ukraine began, we saw a massive crash in the S&P 500, which ended up coinciding almost perfectly with a massive crash in Bitcoin. So the war in Ukraine began roughly right around here, and it triggered this major sell-off on U.S. stocks that frankly might have been overdue. And so now, if U.S. stocks are possibly overdue for a correction, and you see a war in Iran could be about to start, then you may end up seeing the exact same thing taking place that we saw in the last bear market, where you see a major sell-off in U.S. stocks driven by fear of World War III. What we saw in the last bear market is that Bitcoin tracked almost perfectly with the bear market in stocks. The U.S. S&P 500 and the Dow Jones dropped about 20%, and Bitcoin dropped about 80%. So that is kind of the concern right now, is that if war does break out in Iran, you could very easily see a crash in U.S. stocks, which could exacerbate a Bitcoin bear market and drive us significantly lower. So the idea of whether or not the war in Iran is important is, yes, obviously, it is incredibly important to the finance industry as a whole, and it's incredibly important from a humanitarian standpoint. There's a lot of horrible atrocities that the regime over there are committing, right? So I'm not going to wade into the politics of all of it, because it is very difficult to get everything right, especially considering we don't have a lot of primary sources that we actually know for sure that we can trust on what's going on here. But what I will say, and this is the main point, so that we don't drag on too much on this, the main point here is that if war in Iran does break out, it will have serious consequences for Bitcoin. That much can be absolutely assured. And it would probably send Bitcoin low enough that you'd get a generational entry. All right. Queen Fensov said, I bought Satoshis yesterday. Bedrock present. Good deal. Good deal. Too much winning with this administration. Are you tired of winning yet? Are you tired of winning yet? All right. Hit the like button. Gold to 10,000 with war. I told someone a while back that gold was going to go to $10,000 an ounce by the end of the decade, and they just looked at me. They shook their head, And they said, if that happens, we got real big problems. And I said, you understand. Now you understand why I'm saying that, man. Basically, we're screwed if that happens. Exactly. That's why gold's going to 10,000. Is because the global economy is getting dicey out there, guys. Pew Pew Poom 2 said new time. Not new time. We're going to be going live at 9, but we had a very important doctor's appointment that couldn't be missed. So we're actually going to be going live a little earlier. Bro, stop acting like this is Trump's fault. You know, it's the Bitcoin 4-year halving cycle in play. Oh, no, none of that. I'm not saying that anything going on Bitcoin's Trump's fault. No, and as far as what's going on in Iran, if the reports that we're hearing are true, oh my goodness, you're talking about a genocide over there. So, I mean, what do you do? There is a moral dilemma there for sure. Don't you ever accuse me of a crime, Pam Bondi. Volatility incoming, inflation data at 8:30. Yep. All right. So here's the most important thing that we need to look out for. The most important thing that we need to look out for is the fact that unless Bitcoin is able to get back up above $69,000, which is the previous bull market all-time high, then that will mean that in the next 48 hours, not 48 hours, I'm sorry, it'd be the next 60 hours or so, because it'd be 2.5 days. The next 60 hours or so, Bitcoin has to get above the 200 weekly exponential moving average. If we close this weekly candlestick looking like this, in my opinion, all bets are off, and the short-term time frames can do whatever the heck they want. We're going back down to the 200 weekly simple. In fact, I am just going to kind of go ahead and go out on a limb here and say, if this chart closes looking like this, a drop back down to the 200 simple moving average at $58,000 is basically all but assured. It would be absolutely shocking if Bitcoin did not go back down to the 200 weekly simple moving average if we see the 200 weekly break. And a big part of the reason for that, guys, is that the moving averages were just closer to us this time. Like, these moving averages were a lot farther away because the market went far more parabolic in the last cycle. So it was harder to get to them, so we didn't drop as deep into them. And so we should not expect that the bear market is over. We should not expect that. There should be no reason for us to expect that. Bitcoin's down 60% over here when it hits the 200 weekly exponential moving average. Right now in this bear market, Bitcoin's only down 45% before it hits the 200 weekly simple exponential moving average. So there's just no reason to believe that we're not going to fall through this zone all the way back down to the 300 weekly simple moving average, where Bitcoin is sitting here at $50,000 to $52,000. There's just no reason to believe that that's not. There's just no reason to believe that that's not going to happen, and that's okay. Right? It's not a bad thing if we drop down there, but it is something that you need to be prepared for. We're only 133 days into the bear market. Bitcoin, when we were 133 days into the prior bear market, we had not even begun wave 3 yet. We were here. Bitcoin was right here when we were this far into the market. It's very tempting for us to get the proportions completely out of whack and think, for some reason, that Bitcoin is almost done with the bear market. And that is just a fool's errand. Bear markets drag on longer than you want them to. They really do. Now, it's going to be over before you realize it. It's not going to drag on forever. But to think that it's over right now is foolish. In my humble opinion, I believe that it's foolish to believe that we have bottomed. And so we want to be prepared for that. If your emotional, mental, financial well-being or whatnot is dependent on where Bitcoin is, then you need to be prepared to basically need to be prepared to be safe, right? A drop down into the 50,000s is, in my opinion, all but a foregone conclusion. We don't know exactly when that's going to take place, but it is almost certainly going to take place at some point in time. So again, we want to watch that weekly close here, see how this plays out. All right. One thing I do want to mention is that a lot of people say, oh, well, Jeb, Bitcoin can't go that low. We've just been down, 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 down. Yes, we have. And we are probably very close to the end of this impulse to the downside. This would be our 5th weekly close. Red, right? But I need you to understand that when people are comparing the RSI right now to the RSI here in June and July of 2024, what they are failing to realize is that, first of all, this is a different market. So there's that. But the other thing that they're failing to realize is that when RSI was down here at these levels, it managed to go for quite a while more. We saw this huge drop here on this weekly candlestick, down negative 20 to 30%, depending on if you want to draw from the body or the wick. and Bitcoin would stay down here for a time, and we would still go lower. So what we ended up seeing happen here is that we had bullish RSI divergence that set up the entire bull market. And there's a very real possibility that that's going to take place soon. This third wave may not be done. We might drop down to the $58,000 range, build daily chart, bullish RSI divergence. I need to post all this over on X because I honestly am getting to be pretty confident that this is what's probably going to happen. You have some bullish RSI divergence build if you drop back down to the 200 weekly simple on the daily chart. You get your bounce. We recover for a few weeks. We rally higher, maybe up towards 70,000. Put in a $12, $15, $20,000 rally. Maybe you get up to 75,000. And then you end up falling back down again. But this time it's a slower grind. It's more so just boring. And what ends up happening is you see the RSI track out something like this, and the price tracks out something like this, and you see this longer term bullish RSI divergence form moving out here towards like June or so. And then that's when you start the bull market. And that's genuinely what I think is going to happen. I think that's what you see happen here, is that either $60,000 was the bottom of wave 3, in which case we could predict that the bear market would probably be somewhat shorter. And by shorter, I mean not as tall. Or on the other hand, we say that that's not what's going to happen, and that that we drop lower. Maybe we drop down towards that $55,000 to $58,000 range, and there's so much buying pressure down there that we do actually get that protracted bounce. But remember, guys, when you're building patterns out on the weekly chart, it takes months to build a pattern, because a month is only 4 weekly candles. So these are all patterns that we have to make sure we're not just saying, oh, it's going to happen in the next 3 weeks. No, if we're going to build a pattern like what I'm talking about here, and a drawback down to $48,000 to $50,000 for the bear market bottom, you're talking about like June or July at the earliest. So you need to be in a position to prepare for 6 more months of bear market. And when that does take place, that's where we're going to be able to see things do very well. We're going to see a very bullish, very strong bull market. Alrighty. Not doing that. Whoever's running the bots in the YouTube chat, all of my mods are going to get all over that. Let's deal with that. All right, let's read some actual chat while we get all of that taken care of. Really appreciate all of you guys being here. Anyone who says Roca Finance is going to get banned. So just watch out, because I got the ban hammer coming down. Hide user from the channel. Hide user from the channel. Because our stream chat is going to be usable. Our stream chat is going to be usable. I like talking to you guys. We're not losing that. All right. No, you guys are all good. Don't worry about it. Dropping the ban hammer. So how long until we reverse? July? Well, at the end of the day, I would be expecting like I said, I would be expecting several more months of bear market. Even if Bitcoin, let's just say that conservatively Bitcoin is 2/3 the size of the previous bear market. Let's just say that. Let's say this bear market is 2/3 the size. And that has to do with the idea that that the overall stock market is doing well, and the overall economy is doing well. And that's a big if, right? It's a big if. If you don't see a crash in stocks, then yes, it is possible that you could see a bear market that's roughly 2/3 the size, where it could be about 2/3 as deep, so about 60% deep, and about 2/3 as long, 266 days or so. But again, we should not count on that, because at the end of the day, what we should be looking for is for Bitcoin to pretty closely track with the prior bear market. So that's where our goal here is to watch the prior the stock market, see what it does. If we do end up seeing this kind of major crash here on U.S. stocks, then that's where we could end up seeing some excellent buying opportunities. So I want to remind you of what we are actually called to do here. What is the point of what we're doing, and what is it that we should be doing? What we should be doing is we should be looking for great assets to buy at good prices. Sorry, so that we don't have to touch them for a while. And we can leave them alone. We can leave these investments alone and let them build over time. The reason that this is so incredibly important is because what's going to end up happening is if you are jumping in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out of the market, you're not going to actually end up building wealth that way. And what you're going to do is you're going to shoot yourself in the foot because you're going to be constantly resetting your cost basis higher and higher and higher and higher. You must only invest what you can afford to lose because you need to not touch it until it's fully harvested. We're doing a lot of, we're looking at a lot of real estate right now because I'm looking at doing a purchase of a piece of property. And, you know, when you have pine trees, it's tempting to harvest them at 15 years because you can get a little bit of money out of them. But what you don't realize is that the vast majority of the fruit that you get from a harvest of any kind of crop, you get in the last like 10% of its lifespan. If you harvest it just a little bit too early, you're going to get a quarter of what you could have gotten. You have to plant investments at a good time, and you have to leave them alone until they are ready to harvest. If you harvest your investments too soon, you are not only going to be losing a lot of money because you could end up harvesting them at a loss, you're also going to be missing out on a ridiculous amount of opportunity cost. And so what our job is right now is to discern what markets are good markets for us to invest in. I think Bitcoin is a phenomenal market to invest in. And we want to get good prices. We want to get good prices. We want to get good deals. For example, while we're talking about good deal, let's see what a good deal is. If we look out here on the Fibonacci, on the overall log chart here, this is a chart you probably haven't seen out here on the daily chart. If you look at the, let's look at the 3-day chart. It won't change anything, it's Fib. We drop back down to the 0.5. If we were to do the same thing, pulling a Fibonacci off of the entire bull market, guess where that puts us? That puts us at $43,000, guys. That puts us at $43,000. And if we were to say, what's the comparison between where we are and where we were in the last bull and bear market? Well, in the last bear market, when Bitcoin was hovering a little bit above the 0.382, it was hovering about right here at 26,000. Bitcoin would still go down to 15,000. So once again, there is possibly another 40% loss in the cards for Bitcoin here, down towards, that'd be $40,000. So is that going to take place? Yes, it probably will. We probably won't go down to 40,000. I've said at the very top of the market that I give it like a 0.1% chance that Bitcoin ever sees sub $40,000 again. But there is a real possibility that we see 40s to 50s. But right now, we just have to be patient. You have to sit on your hands and you have to wait. And this is one of the things that Bitcoin does to weed out the strong from the weak. It takes its sweet frickin' time doing whatever it wants to do, except for one time a year when it has a massive green candle. And that is the essence of investment. Is the idea is that you take your income and you dump it into the market and you freaking forget about it for a while. And you say, the time to harvest this will be in 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, and I am not to touch it until said point in time. So only invest as much as you are willing to lose because you want to keep your cost basis low. Really that simple. All right. So saying the bear market won't last a year like normal, you're saying we could end early. Every cycle has been a year. Hopium that this cycle is different. No, I'm saying best case. No, that's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying best case scenario, it could be 2/3 the size. But that's if everything goes perfectly. What we should be anticipating is for Bitcoin's bear market to play out very similarly to the way that it has in the past, which is, as you said, a year. And, you know, at the last bear market was 77% deep, right? So again, are we going to see that? Probably not, without some serious failures in the traditional finance space and in the crypto finance space. This was largely predicated on the fact that there was a major war that broke out, which that could happen with Iran. And if it does, then there's your catalyst. This was largely predicated on a major crash on U.S. stocks. It was largely predicated on the rolling off of the balance sheet. So quantitative tightening was taking place at this point in time. We saw Luna collapsed in the middle of this. We saw FTX collapse down here. This was a perfect storm of bearish fundamentals. And frankly, we see none of those right now. Like, we see none of those right now. The stock market's at all-time highs or close. There is no major war breaking out right now that is scaring people. You're not seeing quantitative tightening. Overall, economic indicators are looking good. This bear market was significantly impacted based on COVID. This entire bull market should not have happened. The entire bull market here happened as a result of quantitative easing. And so, to be honest with you, there is a place to say that this bull market all-time high was normal, was natural. This bull market all-time high was natural, and this one honestly might have been too high because it was mainly built on $5 trillion a year, $5 trillion being pushed into the market. I mean, if you cut the top off of this and just say that this is the trend line that we're supposed to see, and this is actually out of standard deviation, because what a lot of people are doing on a lot of these power laws, they're saying that we're dropping below all of the support structure here. Well, what if this broke above the resistance structure? What if this is not the outlier data? What if this is the outlier data? Seriously. Like, why are we considering that this bull market back here that was built on massive hype and huge amounts of inflows of liquidity, why are we saying that this is the normal and this is not? There's nothing going on right now other than a slow, gradual march of adoption. Back over here, this was built on massive consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. First of all, the pandemic wasn't over, but second of all, you had the entire, the whole global economy got completely upended. You had trillions of dollars of liquidity flowing into the market. So why are we considering these tops to be normal and this low to not be normal? Because the overall geopolitical macroeconomic environment right now is significantly more similar to normal than what this was. So if you're going to consider that the case, okay, let's just cut the top off and say the bear market, okay, it's 70% deep, right? It's 70% deep, and obviously this is just back of the napkin kind of nonsense, right? But it's a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller. So my point is, if this was an unnaturally large bull market and it set our expectations too high, then perhaps this was an abnormally large bear market because we had to correct from all of this. And so we should be expecting that bull markets will be a little bit smaller and bear markets will be a little bit smaller because they're not being driven by the quantitative easing that took place in 2020, and then the quantitative tightening that took place thereafter. This was a massive, all of this. I mean, just close your eyes and look at it again. Look at the chart and the way it looks, and then look at this little section of market right here. Doesn't it look a bit like an outlier? Isn't it a little bit of outlier data? You got this straight march higher on the log chart here. And then you have this over here. That's just this massive, basically gigantic Bart Simpson pattern. And when you throw up the balance sheet at the Fed on top of it, what you end up seeing is that that's what it is. The bull market was built on easing. The bear market was built on tightening. This was an emotional reaction to the, not so much emotional, this was a liquidity reaction to the massive amount of liquidity that was dumped into the market. And so if we're not seeing the same, oh my gosh, the market goes up. Oh crap, everything's dying. We had massive traditional finance hopium, massive traditional finance, fear-mongering that poured over into the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space, and then everybody blames Bitcoin. Oh, Bitcoin, that's too much hopium. No. This all was TradFi nonsense. This was the pandemic. This was the easing. This was the tightening. We're not seeing any of that now. Bitcoin is starting to look a lot more like the adult in the room, because it's the one that's actually being a lot more calm. Now, it's on a bear market, and that's fine. Everything has to go through a bear market from time to time. But my point here is that when we're analyzing this previous bear market, the structure, I do think, is going to repeat almost identically. The exact size and even the shape, I mean, everything down to even basically the shape of the bear market, I think most of that is going to repeat almost identically. But the overall exact size, now that's something that I'm not necessarily as convinced is going to repeat perfectly. I don't necessarily think that we're going to see the exact same thing take place here. But what I will say also is this. The last bear market was also basically one giant glorified falling wedge, and so is our current bear market. I mean, if Bitcoin does drop down here to 58,000, bounce up to 72, fall back down again, down here towards June, July, or August, down to 50,000, and then break out, there's your bull market entry. Takes place sometime in October. There you go. It really is just about that simple. Really is just about that simple. I do believe that that's what we're going to see take place relatively soon. All right. Now, there are going to be some generational entries on Bitcoin coming this year. I mean, there already are. $67,000 is an incredible entry, and I want you to be able to take advantage of those entries. And the way that I think that you should best take advantage of those entries is by signing up for the sponsor of today's video, which is iTrust Capital. If you don't know, iTrust Capital is a phenomenal platform that is going to help you get the best deal on Bitcoin. Now, here's why you need to sign up for iTrust Capital. With iTrust Capital, you are able to invest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies through retirement accounts. Why is that so important? If you're like me and you have a high income, you get eaten alive by taxes. And so you want to use any tax strategy available to you to save on taxes so that you are not giving all of your money to Uncle Sam, but you can actually hold on to it and use it for investment. If you are in the $100,000 to $200,000 earning range every year, your top tax rate, that top bracket that you are in, that $100,000 to $200,000 income tax falls into, you're paying 24% taxes on that. If in that range you invest money into Bitcoin through a traditional IRA or an SEP IRA or some of the other plans that they have, you are able to not pay those taxes because it counts as a deduction, which essentially means that by investing in Bitcoin, you get a 24% tax break. So for every $1,000 you invest, that's $240 that you don't have to pay in taxes. Why is that important? Because then that is $240 that instead of paying in taxes, you can put into Bitcoin when we're already 50% down from all-time high. Do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see how powerful this is? By not paying the money in taxes, you don't have to set aside that money for taxes because you get to deduct the investment in Bitcoin from your taxes. This is just this is just how IRAs work. I mean, this is just how retirement accounts work. I mean, you guys understand retirement accounts, right? So instead of investing $1,000, because you actually saved the $240 of taxes if you're in that bucket, for $1,000, you can invest $1,240. And if you can invest $1,240 for the low price of $1,000, then what you've basically done is you've gotten more Bitcoin for the same amount of money, which theoretically, when you factor in the tax savings, it works out like this. You're actually basically buying Bitcoin below spot price. You're not. You're buying it at spot price, but you didn't have to set aside the money for taxes, which means your dollar goes farther. So instead of buying Bitcoin at $67,000, your spot price will be $67,000 if you bought right now. But instead of buying there, since you're getting more Bitcoin for your buck because you don't have to set aside money for taxes, which you would do if you were buying Bitcoin on Coinbase or somewhere else, then you can honestly kind of think about it as if your cost basis is lower. Now, for tax purposes, it's going to be the same, but you're getting more Bitcoin for your dollar. And that's why we brought on iTrust Capital as a sponsor. You guys need to be investing in Bitcoin for long term. I do not understand why you wouldn't have at least some of your Bitcoin in a retirement account. Why not? I understand wanting to self-custody. I totally understand that if you have some in self-custody. Totally get that. But if you're going to leave your Bitcoin alone for 5, 10, 20, 30 years anyway, why not pay taxes on the money in it? Seriously. I mean, let it grow for 10 years, pull it out, pay the penalty if you want. You're still going to pay less in the penalty than you would have paid in the taxes in a lot of cases. Not in every case, but in some cases. It's worth it to take the penalty to get the tax break. Seriously. So if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to sign up for iTrust Capital with the link in the description box down below. All right, let's keep reading chat. When will you consider rebuying Ethereum again? Great question. So, Ethereum has, I'd like to say Ethereum disappointed me, but honestly, I expected this. It's like the worst thing you can say about someone, isn't it? I'd like to say you disappointed me, but honestly, I saw it coming. That's essentially where I am with Ethereum right now. I am very much leaning in the direction of saying I just want to be in Bitcoin. I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I do hold some Ethereum, and I would not sell Ethereum at these levels. I planned on selling Ethereum up here at $3,500, and some stuff came up, and I didn't get a chance to. My issue with Ethereum is that it does not have a fixed supply. And genuinely, over the years, there's DeFi, there's DEXs, there's exchanges, there's lending platforms, there's all liquidity pool, there's all kinds of things going on in crypto. The best thing that crypto has ever come up with, and honestly that I think crypto ever will come up with, is digital scarcity. I'm not sure that we will ever come up with a better product in the cryptocurrency space than digital scarcity. And Ethereum spits in that idea's face because it doesn't have scarcity. It has an infinite supply. I understand that the supply has not been greatly, devalued to a great degree. It hasn't gone up that much. But that scares me. It does. It just scares me. It really does. The lack of true scarcity there is terrifying for me. So where would I consider buying Ethereum? If you love Ethereum, these are great levels. Let's look at this. If you love Ethereum, these are great levels. But at the same time, Ethereum is also still very high on its Bitcoin comparison. It completely failed to have these breakouts that we talked about. It didn't happen. And it's bleeding, once again, to Bitcoin. And why is it bleeding to Bitcoin? Well, the reason it's bleeding to Bitcoin is because Bitcoin has digital scarcity and Ethereum does not. And that's why there's an overall long-term downtrend here. And honestly, I hate to say it, but I kind of expect that to continue. I prefer just having everything in Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a strong enough continual average growth rate for me. I don't need my investments to 1,000x. I don't need that. If somebody needs that, that means they don't want to go out and make any freaking money. You need to have some kind of principle. Some people want to maximize the return so much that they want to just avoid having to have any principle, and that's not wise. You need to go make a high income. If you want to make money, it's not just about the investment. It's not just about 100x. It's about having a high income too. So, at the end of the day, Ethereum has shown for the last 10 years almost that I've been analyzing it, it has shown pretty solid circulating supply stability. I believe when I found it, it was at like 118 million. Now it's at 120 million. And there is obviously the burn. So Ethereum, I'm not saying is a bad store of value by any stretch of the imagination. There are far worse. It's always kind of in the back of my head of, what if something changes? What if something changes? What if the Ethereum Foundation decides to change that? What if? What if? I like Ethereum. Again, I hold Ethereum. In fact, it's the only altcoin that I hold right now, because I do believe in it above most of the other altcoins, and there is a lot of adoption on it. So anyway, if you love Ethereum, these are excellent opportunities, excellent prices. All right, guys. Also want to give a big shout out to NordVPN. If you guys have not already, I highly encourage you to sign up for NordVPN. I love NordVPN and all that they offer. And the reason I love NordVPN is because NordVPN helps keep you safe and secure while you are browsing online. It is absolutely critical that you understand that there are hackers and thieves out here trying to steal from you. What is the point of laying up your wealth for the evil? The individual that's trying to steal from you, that's trying to take your hard-earned money and go and do whatever nefarious thing that they're going to do with it. Why would you want to lay up your wealth for the sinner? Why would you want to lay up your wealth for a hacker and a thief? I don't, which is why I use NordVPN. I'm literally looking at it right now on my taskbar down here and up here. I've got NordPass, I've got NordVPN, I have all their products. I love them. NordVPN is a phenomenal company, and they are the VPN that I recommend. If you guys have not already, make sure to go to nordvpn.com/Jeb. You get 4 months extra when you get our deal. Come over here to get the deal for $3.33 a month. For the low price of 11 cents a day. Save a puppy. No, you can get NordVPN. You can actually get NordVPN for $3.33 a month. It works out to $93 up front, but that's for 24 months plus 4 months free. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. So you get the secure, fast virtual private network. You get the password manager. You get the add and tracker blocker here. If you go up to some of these bigger, some of these larger plans, you can get things like the 1 terabyte of cloud storage, which is very helpful. Scam call protection. This is a new one, and this is a great one. I love this. If you guys haven't already, make sure to sign up for NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/Jeb. All right. Let's read a little bit of chat and look at this a little bit more, and then we're going to wrap it out. So Bitcoin, as we've discussed here, is, again, if we break bullish here, then yeah, we'll start flipping bullish. But as it stands, Bitcoin, every time it's come into this zone of these moving averages, has rejected, and it's rejected hard. And the rejection that we're seeing right now is, I mean, it's bad enough to keep a kid home from prom, man. You know what I mean? It's bad. It's rough. This is embarrassing. This is get dragged behind behind the cafeteria and get beat up kind of rejection. This is bad. This is real bad. This is nasty. This is the kind of the rejection where you look in the mirror and the mirror breaks. I mean, this is rough. This is the kind of rejection where I don't know. We can go all day, right? This is a bad rejection. Bitcoin's getting absolutely whooped. This is rough. Like this is hard to watch. This is hard to watch. This would go on America's Funniest Home Videos, but I'm pretty sure the FTC has policies against cyberbullying. There we go. There's one. Anyway, the point here is that I don't see anything bullish about this chart. Again, if Bitcoin does manage to break up here above 70, then that's where we would start having some confirmations that Bitcoin is bullish. But for now, that ain't doing it. That ain't cutting it. That is just that this is cyberbullying right here. This is the bears are cyberbullying the bulls. The bulls are being cyberbullied, guys. I mean, like, they got a fake AI video made of them and it's circulating on Facebook. It's bad. It's rough. It's rough out here for Bitcoin. So, again, overall, we'll wrap it out because I got to go. But overall, the idea here is that Bitcoin is bearish until proven otherwise. We have not been proven otherwise. And so there's a very real likelihood that we're going to be looking for lower entries. I do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate all of you for being here. Look out for those good entries on Bitcoin. And before I go, I love you so much. And I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.